beautiful faces. Thank you for volunteering your time and coming out here tonight to talk about to talk. So let's talk, right? Let's talk career. Today's topic is how to secure your career during and after college. And though that is the description, though we are talking about securing your career, and we're talking about, and this is catered to people who are in college, we aren't neglecting, and we're not talking about people who did not go to college. I think the things that I learned in college and how I started to view college when I was in college is that college is just a beautiful place where you're interconnected with a lot of people to learn a lot of things. Um, Looking back, I'm grateful for my college experience. I'm glad I went to college. But if you're not in college and you're listening to this, know that your route is not any worse or any better than the route that I chose to take. So, who am I, right? My name is Enyo. I am a youth here. I've been in this church for about, I would say, oh wow, 5 years. Yes, nope, 4 years, since 2018. I teach Sunday school. I'm also involved in the media and communications here at the church. And help out wherever I really can. Outside of church, I graduated from Worcester Polytechnic Institute, which is just down the road. And here today with me are my wonderful peers from WPI, Worcester Polytechnic Institute. And currently I am at Tufts School of Medicine, working on my master's in public health. And I'm also a research associate at the Broad Institute of MIT and Harvard. So, beautiful names, right? I'll tell you right now, my story and getting involved and getting career-minded was a journey. Growing up, I didn't have the resources and the people around, well, I did have the people around me, but navigating this whole finding a job, figuring out what I want to do, building a career, and being really intentional about that was really difficult. And it's by the grace of God that I'm here today and able to say that, yes, I work here, and yes, I'm pursuing my master's here, because I'm telling you, 2 years ago, no, I don't think even a year ago, nope, 2 years ago, I would say, I don't think I'd be up here today to say that. So I give God all the glory and all the praise. But enough about me. Let's get into it. So let's meet the panelists. Starting from my furthest right, I'm gonna let everyone introduce themselves, because you'll hear a little bit more about my journey and things more about me and everything, but let's get to the panelists. I'm gonna let them introduce themselves, talk about who they are, right? These wonderful people, their educational background, and where they've worked, and what they're currently doing for a living. So, without further ado, I'm going to pass it on to Kweku.
Hello, everyone. My name is Kweku Sam Colcraft. I attend Christ Revival Center in Worcester, Massachusetts. I similarly graduated from Worcester Polytechnic Institute, class of 2021, with my bachelor's in chemical engineering. I graduated in summer of 2022 with my master's in material science and engineering. And my work experience includes 2 internships with General Electric up in Schenectady. And I currently work in the Boston area at a battery startup company as a battery research engineer for a company named Alstom Energy.
Thanks, Kweku. So, hi everyone. My name is Justin Amefor. I am currently a graduate student at Worcester Polytech Institute studying computer science. I also was born and raised in Worcester. I go by he, him, his pronouns. I am of Ghanaian descent. And I also just want to say thanks to everyone to having me on this panel, as well as inviting to this church. Met Enyo through school, and then she invited me here, and every time I've been to this church, it's been very welcoming. So just thank y'all, and also thank y'all for attending. So it's great to talk to you, and I'm excited to share any information I have and to learn anything from y'all as well.
I'm really excited to learn. I'm just gonna go ahead and introduce myself a little bit more in specifics. So I graduated from WPI with a BS in biochemistry and a minor in global public health. I was pre-med, and I would still be considered pre-med. And again, I'll talk about that more, but without further ado, Luese.
Hello, everyone. My name is Luese Ufwa. I'm from New Jersey, born in New York, raised in New Jersey. I came to Worcester, Massachusetts for college. I currently attend Worcester Polytechnic Institute, majoring in biomedical and mechanical engineering. I plan on getting my bachelor's degree in 2023 and my master's in 2024. For work experience, I currently work at my school's rec center, and I also have a summer internship right now. Quick testimony, the summer internship actually just got extended, so I'll be able to work with that during the school year.
Praise God.
Thank God. I think that's it for work experience.
Nice. Okay, so for those of you who just walked in, hello. I'm not gonna sing you loud, I promise. But this is Kweku. He is a test battery engineer. This is Justin. Justin, introduce yourself.
I'm a grad student at WPI.
Grad student at WPI, thank you. Me, a grad student at Tufts and a research associate. And Luese.
Rising senior at WPI.
Okay, I'm laughing because I know all these people. We went to school together. Like, this is a part of my extended family, you could say. We did similar clubs and stuff like that, so forgive me if I'm a little too comfortable. I'm gonna try and snap myself out of it. But, okay, so we all talked about your background, what you do for a living, and you know, I kind of want to talk a little bit more before we get into applying jobs, just briefly, because I got a lot of questions for you guys tonight. But just briefly, what were some of what was your journey with getting a bit more career-minded, or did you always have an idea of what you wanted to do for work and what you wanted to do for a living? I'll let anyone answer that. It doesn't have to be quick.
For me, I always felt a lot of pressure from my parents to either become a doctor, engineer, or lawyer, and I tried to kind of make my own thing by integrating different kind of sciences, but it's basically engineering. But I got a lot of motivation from my parents.
For me, similarly, I think, typical things pharmacist, engineer, doctor, lawyer, those are the standard options. But also my parents were also kind of chill. I remember once saying that I wanted to be a dumpster truck driver, and my mom being like, all right, sure, go ahead. I think definitely for me, I got a lot of inspiration from my brother. He also was an engineer. He also went to the same school, so I definitely just took up a lot of what he did, so I have to give him a lot of credit.
Yeah, I would say I'm a bit similar in the sense that growing up, it was pharmacist, lawyer, engineer, doctor, the typical high-earning intellectual jobs that parents would like you to get in order to secure your future. But I similarly also followed my brother. I always had an aptitude for math and science growing up, and I knew that kind of whittled down the options growing up. But as I got closer and closer, I decided on doing engineer because it presented the most challenge, and it was if my brother could do it, then I could do it too. So that's why I decided to do chemical engineering, and I ended up working out for the most part.
Yeah, I would say, like I kind of alluded to, but also similar sentiment. Gotta love African parents, amen. Doctor, lawyer, engineer, but they definitely pushed me towards being a doctor, and going to WPI and being in that very fast-paced environment because so we didn't have semesters, we had terms. And coming in, I was like, yeah, I'll be a doctor. I thought I got through all my roadblocks in high school with counselors saying, oh, you don't seem like you'll be successful, or even going ahead and saying, I don't think you should apply for a four-year college because I don't think you're going to get in. And I thought I went through all of that just to come to college and really realize, uh, this whole doctor thing is looking slow, mom and dad. I don't really know if that's gonna be my path, but definitely where I am right now is by my senior year, realizing all the pressures that were alluded and with this, I was just like, if I'm going to do this, I have to want to do this for myself. So I think being in this area right now where I'm working full time and in school part time is really just sort of figuring out what I want to do and also making sure I have financial security, right? But also allowing myself that freedom to really carve out my path still. So that was nice. Thank y'all for sharing. Thank y'all for sharing. So let's get into it, right? Applying for jobs. Applying for jobs. Applying for jobs. I know when it comes to applying for jobs, it can look honestly different for everyone. Like, I don't think there is a roadmap you have to really follow. There is the basics, like make sure you have a resume, make sure, you know, you have certain things set up, experience and all that stuff. But I kind of want to know what helped y'all the most in finding either a job or an internship or getting your foot in the door. Like, what were some of the things that you thought about that just helped the process go smoother?
I think the biggest thing for me was connections, because I don't think I would even be at WPI right now if I didn't have like a certain connection. Like when I was living in New Jersey in high school, I didn't know Worcester existed. I didn't know there was a WPI. But
Me
like,
neither, girl.
yeah.
Worcester? Nah.
But like, the more you like go out and talk to people about what you're interested in, maybe like plan a certain type of future with that person, talk to them, have certain requests, you'll see that it opens doors, and that really helped me a lot.
Anyone else?
I'm trying to think. I've had a bunch of jobs, like internships, jobs, and a lot of the times when I found out, I would say similarly just like the connections and being able to network per se, and good advice I got a lot of times. I feel like when you get the best times when you get jobs are ones where you like basically don't even have to apply to them. When you know someone, or you just like had a connection, or someone needed a spot filled, so they reached out to you. I feel like when you get to know people really well, those have been the best jobs that I've had. Especially when you start thinking about like whether I'm actually happy in this job, or is this something I actually want to do. When like you start noticing the synergy and start thinking about that and looking for it intentionally, that's really when I've had the best luck in looking for jobs and potentially actually working in them.
I would say when it comes to job searching, I've kind of experienced both sides of the coin in terms of kind of the pre-pandemic landscape of job searching and job finding, and also seeing how that space has changed as a result of that which the world was faced with in 2020. But my first real engineering experience came in October of 2019, I believe. Yes, I went to the career fair at WPI. It was the first time that I feel like I seriously went to the career fair, because, freshman year, they're like, you should go to the career fair, but like, the sentiment is you're not gonna find a job, because, the dilemma is they're looking for someone with experience, but you need the internship to get experience, That's the question that is always arises when you're job searching as a young engineer. But I went to the career fair, talked to a couple different companies, and then I talked to GE. The conversation was kind of normal, and I was even nervous, but I just dropped my resume. And then all of a sudden, 2 weeks later, I just happened to look in the handshake, like one of WPI's online programs, and it was like, oh, schedule your interview. And I was like, what is this, like a scam? I didn't even think the conversation went that well, but I proceeded to file a time and then went to the CRC, interviewed. It was just a behavioral interview, and then after that, I received an offer letter. So that was basically my experience in terms of just putting yourself out there and having a conversation, even if you might not think it would go well, it allows you to gain an experience. Because I'd been to career fairs before, but it allows you to gain an experience in being able to talk to people who, quite honestly, don't look like us, have a different sociocultural background than us, and they can be daunting as a result of their background and their experience and even financial level. But so that was that first experience. And then post-pandemic, in job searching after my master's, during completing my master's and after completing my master's, I've been benefited by the resource of LinkedIn. Basically, last fall, I beefed up my LinkedIn, put in all my experiences, both my internships at GE and some of my other experiences in WPI, my research experiences, and the job that I'm currently at, they actually just reached out to me. Because now that I'm in the job, I see what my recruiter does in the HR department. These days, after the pandemic, it's really just mass job postings everywhere, looking for people with certain qualifications, certain keywords in your LinkedIn profile, and you'll just receive messages in your LinkedIn. So that's really been my experience in trying to find jobs.
Okay, I see. So you and Justin both talked about putting yourself out there, making those connections, which is what Luese also alluded to. But let's take a step back, right? We're talking putting yourself out there, finding people where you're making connections and making that good synergy. But like, how do you do that? Okay. Like, how did you muster up the courage to put yourself out there? What does putting yourself out there even look like? If you guys could, or one of you want to walk me through your starting process with putting yourself out there.
I would say an excellent thing that WPI in particular does for students of color and students who are considered minorities is they have a connections program. So in that program, before all the other Caucasian and other races that aren't considered minorities, students come to the school.
That's how we all met, by the way.
Yeah, that's how we all met. In the Caucasian, in the, what's it called, connections program. Either some of us were PAs or me and Enya were in the same connections program.
All right, but let me not cut you off, right?
Mm-hmm.
Not everyone went to WPI.
Oh, yeah.
See, I know you're about to explain connections, but just make sure to explain these acronyms.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, it's just me knowing what a PA means. A PA in the world means a physician assistant.
True.
Right.
So a PA is basically a leader in the program, a student that is basically serves as a mentor to the freshmen coming in. So basically, this program allows you to have people who look like you, who have been in the same, who have been in the same shoes that you will soon be. So you get that opportunity to find a mentor, and that really is the point that I'm trying to drive in. Find a mentor, someone. It doesn't have to be anyone of the utmost qualification, but when you're trying to look to do a certain thing, you want to find someone who is in that space. That's what I would say is the first step in getting your foot in the door, in making that connection. Especially now we have LinkedIn. Reach out to people on LinkedIn. People are very open these days. People have that passion. People have that drive to want to share their experiences. So if you are looking for a certain position, look for just browse companies, look for people in those positions, and just reach out. I did that with the Global Research Center when I was looking for a job, GE Global Research, because I was at GE Gas Power Engineering, but it didn't work out. So I applied to Global Research. I was in the process of interviewing, and I reached out to someone who worked there who looked like me. And she was like, oh yeah, I got you, I'm gonna set you up. She was telling me the ins and outs of, certain things that I would face as a minority in the company, things of that nature. And though I didn't end up following through with that opportunity, I gained a connection who I can look to in the future in the GE Global Research Center, because I'm currently a battery research engineer, and GE Global Research, they do a bunch of different projects. So right there, in the future, if I'm stuck, that's a job opportunity right there. So that, and that's a big lesson. Don't burn bridges. I'm sure we'll get into that.
Don't burn bridges. Yeah. Definitely don't burn bridges. And finding a mentor or someone that is doing what you want to do, and asking them how. And just real quick, Justin, before you share as well, in my process, I did connections, I was a leader in the National Society of Black Engineers at my school, which was really geared towards connecting students, not just engineers, with professional development opportunities. But I'm telling y'all, it's not that none of that helped me. It did. It did. It gave me the soft skills. It gave me the knowledge that I needed to go out there and ask questions, go out there and put myself out. But when it came to me, being especially pre-med at an engineering school, like, none of that helped. The career fair would have like UMass, medical, and they would be there for like 2 hours and also dip out. I hope no one from WPI is watching this. But seriously, because like there weren't pre-med students, there weren't students who are really interested in those things. There are. To this day, I know there are. But putting myself out there to apply for jobs, I had to always sort of carve my own path and like search and ask around, and really, it's like building a web of connections. And that's sort of what Connections kind of taught us to do. Like, yeah, you may meet one person that doesn't have exactly what you're looking for, but that person also has a network. So you ask that person, okay, let's talk, because you're kind of in the realm of what I'm doing. For example, I was really into public health my sophomore year of college. There was one professor who volunteered at a community clinic and also was into public health, but he wasn't doing exactly what I wanted to do at the time, which was really look into nutrition and things like that nature. But I knew he was the closest to what I wanted to do. So talked to him, and I ended up doing a summer experience in his lab, doing basic data entry. Again, not exactly what I wanted to do, but what that experience helped me figure out is, okay, there's data entry, but then in doing projects with this professor, we ended up going to like an event where this professor and my team and other people got together, and we got together with medical students at UMass, and we're presenting our research that we kind of compiled together throughout the project. And through there, I was able to connect with people in his network, and then also connect with those medical students. And it's just like building and building and building those webs. But when it finally came to applying to the job I had now, I never went to that WPI career fair. I never went to a NSBE. I did go, but they weren't helpful. I literally, using those connections, putting myself out there in those small opportunities I had with like networking events that were at my school, I came across the job I wanted to work at, but they never came. They never came to my school. I realize now, being at the company, that they do have that campus recruiting thing, but my school's usually not there, and that's okay. But being in that vicinity, I was able to then go back and, okay, go on Google and sort of like direct a search there, and then go to the company, see what their recruiting looked like, search throughout there, search and see if the company was even a company I wanted to work at. Because again, I was in this sort of gap year process that I'm in right now. So I didn't want a company so focused on academics, and I also didn't want a company so focused on industry. And a little bit of my background, being with that science degree, right? I could have worked in another undergraduate research lab, but I didn't necessarily want that, because I want a different experience, and that's something different to what I was doing already in school, which is volunteering in labs and getting that experience. But I also knew if I worked in industry, industry is where the money is at. I would have been rich. Probably wouldn't be here today. But even starting out. However, I wouldn't have had the time that I needed to focus on my overall career and what I actually wanted to do. I would have been doing so much work throughout the day, and working on like actual like heavy work assignments, that I wouldn't have that free time to sort of just explore. So before turning it into the crowd to ask more specific questions, Justin, did you want to share something?
Well, I mean, first, like, thanks for sharing that, because I feel like, I mean, that's like a lot of those things that you articulated are things that I feel like some of us may have articulated, especially just talking about like that networking part of it. Particularly, in my case, I'm fortunate because most of the opportunities I got were through my school, and so my school has as we've mentioned, like pretty good resources with a good job finding opportunities. But you know, in my case, and I feel like in a lot of cases, just applying to jobs or just getting yourself out there, that's hard initially, or like, you know, you may find, you know, just that part troubling as well. And in other cases, you may not even have those resources. Let's say you may not can't get to a career for it, or like, you know, you may not have don't even know where to start. You don't even know, haven't heard of a career fair, or like, you know, where to submit your resumes yet before. So, you know, depending on where you are, it's, you know, there's so many different walks of that journey. That's definitely somewhere where I started. And I think one of the things that helped me, you know, when I'm just getting out through the door is, again, as articulated, as Anya was saying, was just like start that networking with something or somebody. Professors are a really good example of this. When you know, if nothing else, like your professors are people who've been doing stuff for 20, 30 years in industry. So when you're telling, hey, like I'm a this major looking for this, and they're like, oh yeah, like I used to work at this company doing this, and at least if I don't have a job, like, you know, I was doing this, like here's some old books, or here's like a good, you know, here's a good resource to follow. You know, and I really think, you know, it was really hard for me because I could be shy. Like, you know, it's hard for me to like go into that first step to be like, hey, like, you know, please hire me at your company, or please, like, you know, like, here's what I have to offer. Like, you know, take me, which, you know, we really need to get used to, because we're valuable, whether it's engineering or not. You know, we're valuable, like, labor and resources. But I think, you know, recognizing that and just starting off with, like, talking to anyone, or just getting your foot in the door, just practicing. You know, especially, like, when you get into interview phase and you're like, you have your first interview, you're like, oh my gosh, I don't know what to do. And then, like, let's say you bomb it. That's great. Now you know what not to do and what to do in an interview, you know? So, again, I really think when, you know, just those first steps, especially when you don't have resources, and even when you do, it's even better, but just, like, starting to ask people, like, or just taking your footstep and just like, hey, I'm really confused on this, or like, you know, I could help, or like, could you help me with this, or do you think you could have any opportunities this summer? And that's the other thing too. A lot of the times, people don't realize that just like asking, it sounds like simple, but like asking can really help. You know, I've known people that have been able to get scholarships, or just saying like, hey, like I don't have any money. Do you have any, you know, extra funds? And you're like, oh, we actually do. No one ever asks. You know, so things like that. A lot of the times, like the hidden, you know, those things that aren't really like publicized are the things that can like really help and support. And again, asking questions has been something that like I do when I feel like, you know, really trying to get opportunities I'm looking for.
Yeah. Yeah. Before I move on, Luese, do you have anything to say?
No, I really agree. I feel like professors, a lot of people, professors especially, they want you to ask those questions, and they're actual resources for you to use. So asking questions is important. I agree.
Okay. Now turning it to the audience. Hello. Do y'all have any questions about applying for jobs? I wanted to say, before you ask your question, if you could also introduce yourselves a little bit, like tell me where you're coming from in this process, like, so we can cater what we're saying also to you, so you get the most out of being here today. But yeah, does anyone have any questions, comments, experience to also add on to what we were saying? Loretta, yes. Oh, okay, and then Bev.
Hi everyone, my name is Loretta. Oh, you can hear me.
There we go.
My name is Loretta. I work as a college advisor right now. I graduated with a public health degree from UMass Law. I guess my question is, you guys went to WPI, which looks like it has a lot of resources, and how could you translate, I guess, let's think about it this way. Let's say we had the lack of resources. I went to UMass Law, it's not that much resource there. So how would you translate your experience of how to get a job, how to get experience, to like, if you have to advise someone that is in a place where they can see people around them who are doing the things that they aspire to do. I don't know if does my question make sense?
Yeah, so kind of like taking what all the jargon, the connections, all that WPI stuff out, right? And how would we say you should go about finding those resources at your college to also to put your foot in the door in terms of applying for a job? Okay, just making sure. I kind of added some stuff right there. But okay, I would say similar to my process. I know it's not the same, but being in an engineering school when you're like not into engineering, I would say tracing back a step, going to, if it's public health that you want to do, or the classes that you took, and looking at those professors and maybe reaching back out and saying, hi, I'm interested in doing this, or even every campus has a website, so going to those professors' bios and seeing what their research interests are, where they went, where they graduated from, what they do, and if it's research that you're into, that could be a really good thing, like going on their campus websites and seeing their research interest and seeing, okay, does this align with what I want to do? And then simply just emailing them. Because 9 times out of 10, I remember also having to do this my sophomore or junior year. I think my sophomore year when I was in that sort of, I had to design public health experience with that one professor. But then I knew I also wanted to be in a lab, but the lab I wanted wasn't any of the labs that the professors were offering. So I had to sort of go through the whole bio department and email each one like, well, first searching through what kind of aligned with what I wanted to do and what would give me some of those hard and soft skills that could help in the long term with what I want to do, and then seeing and then emailing those professors to see if we would align with each other. And I would say 9 times out of 10, because some wouldn't respond, but the majority did respond, at least setting up like, okay, yeah, come to my office, we can talk more about it and stuff like that. And even with my department, being in biochem, I'm just gonna talk freely. The professors were not that nice. So I actually had to look into the bio department to find, I don't care. I had to look in the bio department to find opportunities because I wasn't really getting much responses from the chem and the biochem department. But then going to the bio department, I found a professor who helped me tremendously when it came to just even believing in myself and believing that I could even pursue a career sort of in STEM, sort of not in STEM. And to this point, we're even going out to get lunch next weekend. So definitely echoing y'all's point about not burning bridges, but building that map, sort of looking through, seeing what professors do have that, or yeah. Another thing I'll just throw in there real quick and then turn it to anyone else in the audience and here on the panel that could also say something is, recently I fell into the same dilemma with public health. And working full time, I sometimes ignore the stuff coming to my student email just because I'm like, I got things to do, I don't know. But they send out a newsletter every Monday and Friday. And usually I just ignore it. But then one Monday I was like, okay, let me look and see what they have going on. I saw they had conferences, and I saw they had like, oh, well, meet a professor here, or do this and do that. And I was like, okay, this is new to me, because for a while, I used sort of what my environment had with being really heavy in engineering to sort of garner and like build my mindset around a lot of things. But I knew I needed more public health experience. So looking at just that newsletter or newsletters that I send out, checking your email, checking your email to see what things are going on in campus, and perusing through that can also really connect you. So in my experience with that, I saw that there was a conference and I was like, okay, this conference is a little hefty in terms of price, but I'm gonna put myself out there and see what I can do, see what this field really even looks like. And then from there, checking my email again, I saw that they were sponsoring 6 students to go to that conference. So now I'm going to that conference for free and getting experience. So definitely combing through wherever there can be. Was that helpful? Yeah, no problem. Bev, shoot me. Not literally.
My question is, what kind of preparation should I do when I'm applying for a job? So besides like getting my resume together, like what other things should I like prepare myself with? Like, you know.
That's a really, really good question. And I have a great answer, but I'm actually turning it to Luessa here, who recently had to do this to answer. Or anyone else who wants to answer. I'm just putting her on the spot.
Oh, okay. I see what you're saying. So, a really good way to prepare yourself is to have something called an elevator pitch, which is basically something you can use whether you're doing an interview or whether you're at a conference, career fair, meeting anyone that is in a company. And it's basically how you pitch yourself or introduce yourself. And it's your name, what you're doing right now, and where you want to go. So my elevator pitch to you would be, hi, my name is Luese Ufwa. I'm majoring in biomedical and mechanical engineering at WPI, and someday I would like to become a head of supplier quality assurance. Does anyone want to practice? Beverly, you practice.
Okay.
There we go.
Hi, my name is Beverly Tufor, and right now I am pursuing my master's in biomedical sciences, and in future I would like to become a medical doctor.
Beautiful. Yeah, let's clap. That was
good.
That was good.
You could even spruce it up sometimes, like add what are the steps you're taking to go where you want to go. Am I missing anything?
I just wanted to add along to that. In my experiences in the job process so far, and also being on the other side of things and interviewing people at my company, one of the biggest things when it comes to finding jobs and acing interviews is the behavioral portion, because that typically is the first round of interviews that you'll get. So one thing that I did, which my brother had advised me to do, is every time before an interview, just to refresh myself on those types of questions, because they're usually generic, what's one struggle you went through, what's a time when you faced a challenge, or what's your biggest strength, biggest weakness, things of that nature, and really master how you'll answer those questions. But all that to say, my main point being that it's how you come off and your passion. Because if you're there in the interview and you're not showing passion, most of the times automatically, because at the end of the day, when you're applying for a position, if it's a position that you really want, a lot of other people are applying for that position. So it's like, what differentiates you? But especially where the job sphere is going these days, everyone has similar qualifications. Knowledge is everywhere. Like the knowledge, like people have the knowledge. So what people are looking for, and for me, like why they hired me above other people was that I showed an intense passion for that which they wanted to do. And they're looking for someone who will come into their company and also influence people, because passion alone can do a lot for a project, it can do a lot for a company. So in terms of interview process, I would say really showing that passion and having that energy, because it's infectious.
Yeah, just very briefly, really quick. When you're thinking about the job and the question we're thinking about first, like we're skipping over the part like you come to peace with, you're mentally ready for the job. You decide you're going to be giving 40 hours to this company, and you've thought whether you are applying to a job versus a career. So when you're in preparation, as we're saying, so let's say you've come to terms, you understand, you're ready, you've thought of all those things, and now you sat here and you're sitting and you're applying for this job. And in those cases, so yeah, definitely all those things, an elevator pitch, the behavioral interviews are extremely important. Had this 8th grade teacher once that said he would never hire someone if they didn't bring a pen to an interview. So whether you need to write something down, things like that, whether you're dressed, whether you smell, things. If the interviewer's last note is that, oh, this person's shirt wasn't untucked, you may not get that job because the other person, had their shirt tucked in. And definitely I want to focus practicing those questions, especially, we're applying for careers. If you're applying for a technical job, you may have a technical interview. So you must very much prepare, your interviews all day. But having preset answers for what's a time you've had struggled with adversity, have it back of your hand. Your elevator pitch, have it back of your hand. Those, the separation with someone who has a resume, it's on clean paper, versus the person who, shirt's a little untucked or, didn't have the answer right on the spot. If you're the interviewer, which one would you go with? Probably the person that did the little bit of extra work. So you want to make sure you just stand out to that person. Always say thank you at the end of your interview, things like that. Just also, I think questions about resources, internet, Google, and watch videos. Definitely just Google these things before, because it'll give you the answers.
Yeah, I would say you all said really good points. I don't even know where I want to start, but back to elevator pitch. One thing that at the time the director of the Office of Multicultural Affairs at my school told me was, in this process, at the time I was going to go to grad school and right out of college, and she told me to basically take apart my resume and write down, apart from that one line, my experience, my story. Flush through everything, why this aids and why this will help me get the job, what this taught me, things like that, and just taking my experiences and really making them my own and preparing that story, whether it's bullet points on interview day, so I know when the interviewer is oh, so you have some experience with this, tell me about it. I can tell them about it. And I can tell them how that led me to here and here and here, and why it's led me to where I am today, applying for this job. Definitely to Kweku's point, I really, 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 really struggled in school, to the point where that's one thing I always talk about first, because, it's really by the grace of God. And I remember when I started applying for jobs, I was really stressed. It was my senior year. I didn't want nothing to do with anything, but I knew I needed a job because I need money. So, but I wasn't really confident in myself. And I remember the interviewers being nice, the people being really cool, but me just not believing in myself bombed so many interviews. To go back to the technical point, making sure you're prepared for any technical questions they'll ask you, because I remember at this interview that I really bombed, it was a basic general chemistry question, but just from my experience of failing general chem the first time, taking it again, failing the second set of general chem, taking it again, I felt like I didn't know the answer to the question when I did. But just me feeling oh, I don't believe in myself, I bombed it. And then I remember the interviewer at the end being it's just this. And I was yeah. And then I rushed out. But by the time it was really cutting close, and I really was hey, if I don't get a job at this point, I don't know what's gonna happen. I was fake it till you make it. There's this reel on Instagram and TikTok where it's asking Rihanna, what do you do on your worst days? I pretend. Yeah, no, pretend. If you don't believe in yourself, at least even pretend that you believe in yourself so you can make it through the interview. And in that interview, I was I did my little story thing. I had my little pitch, and I was this is who I am. Yeah, yeah.
Also, again with the asking, if you're not sure about your resume or whatever you may not be sure about, you can ask someone who's done it before. I'm pretty sure I've asked Kweku for his resume I don't know how many times, and through that I actually found out that it's not just jobs that are experiences. like stuff that you do in school you can use and put on your resume. Projects, I put those in my resume, and those actually helped me a lot. Interviewers have asked me about projects that I've done, and I think the biggest thing was actually knowing what I did, knowing those projects, like knowing what you do, and that's also having passion. So
Yeah, just very quick. Definitely make sure you know your resume. Like, if you put something on it, like, be prepared to ask a question. You don't want to be an interviewer, and the interviewer's like, Python? I was like, Python? What are you talking about?
Never seen Python in my
Not
life.
saying that from experience, but
To the best
I've
of your
definitely done that.
I've definitely put Python in my resume. And I'm
Java.
not good at Python. Java too.
Ruby?
Hey. Any other questions? Oh, Patrick? You might have.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi, I'm Patrick, and I go to UMass Amherst. I wanted to share my experience when it comes to the elevator speech. What I wanted to say, I do agree with what you say. It's really important, but what I also experienced with that is that I did not only use it for the interview, because what happened sometime I will go to places and I will have a conversation with people, and then those conversations will turn out to be like a job opportunity, and I will use my elevator speech right there, and then because of that, I ended up by having a interview because of that. So I really do believe that what you say is really important about the elevator speech. And I had a question about the interview. So, Kweku, so you say that you should never be afraid of going on your first interview, because even if you mess it up, at least now you know where you mess it up. And so my question is, so sometimes the hiring manager may not tell you exactly where you messed up. They can tell you either maybe you didn't have enough work experience, but sometimes they might not tell you why they didn't really take you. So like, let's say they don't take you and you don't really know where you messed up. So how do you do to figure out so you can do better next time?
So when you're in the interview, like always get the person that's interviewing their name and their full name, and then after the interview, you can send them a follow-up email or add them on LinkedIn. And when you get your decision back or whatever, you can contact them and say, hey, like, I was really interested. Could you just please tell me what I did wrong and all that? Also, if you after any interview that you have, it's important to contact the person that interviewed you and just say, like, thanks for interviewing, like, I'm really interested.
Yeah, definitely echoing that. Sending a thank you makes you stand out tremendously. And in my thank yous, I also thank them when I got rejections. And in those rejections, I would say, like, thank you for letting me know. For the ones that did let me know. Not too many people ghosted me, though. But when they rejected me, I asked, like, I'm just curious, like, what were things that didn't stand out, like, so I can also, know later on in the process. And through that, it was when I learned that not being confident in that one interview where I bombed it because I didn't think I knew the answer and stuff like that really helped me be prepared for my last interview that I did. Kweku. Justin, any?
Yeah, I mean, I'll say in the ideal situation, it would be great if you get the interviewer's contact, even especially like if you can just ask, like even if it's an end or like if you can like get the info, like ideally just asking the person is your best case. If not, so sometimes right? Like sometimes you're like, oh, I definitely messed up that question. So just like being reflective, maybe writing down stuff you thought about, right after the interview. Just so you can always, especially you're doing a lot, like, starting to think like, okay, well, what are the common themes? So, you start preparing yourself for the multiple times you're going to be doing it.
And then I would say another thing that I've done and I've seen friends do when it comes to interview that's really helped me develop myself as, just being able to market myself is after every interview that I go to, and I have certain friends that after they go to an interview we run by how the interview went, what exactly they said, what exactly, this is in the worst case scenario if you're not able to actually get the person's contact. I would say have a mentor or a close friend that you can run the interview by, because oftentimes there'll be that one thing or that one scenario where you yourself, you felt like it was perhaps, a little bit, it didn't come across the best. And they're able to, with clean eyes see that and point it out to you. So that, I think, is another thing that you can do. Worst case, if you can't get their contact, just, find someone. It can be really anyone, but ideally someone who is in the same career space or has been in a similar position who can give you that feedback.
Beverly?
Hi. One more question. So when I'm on a job search, what are some things that I should have in my mind that like I should look for in a job? Like how do I know that okay, I should apply to this one instead of just applying to any, like, what are some like criteria that I should have in my mind?
Let me ask you a follow-up question. Just to make sure it's like a legitimate job, or what do you mean by that?
Like pay. Do I fit all of what they're looking for? Do I like the environment that they're like giving? What else do they put on there? Like basically just seeing like if it's worth it, if it's worth me applying to that job. I don't know if that makes sense.
No, that makes sense. That makes sense. Thank you.
Yeah, I guess so. For worth applying, it's probably worth applying, especially because as through the one, the process is good. If you get through the interview process, you can ask any questions to vet it out. But I guess just to talk about my experience just a little. So in 2020, I was working in New Hampshire as a software engineer for a company, and then I left to and I signed up for the job like right out of school and everything. They're good pay, great benefits. I was like, oh, this is great. But then, a year later, I decided to go back to school for a bunch of reasons, and left that job. And, a lot of reasons was because, one, it was in New Hampshire, and so I live in Worcester, so, the commute wasn't great for me. But besides that, the work-life balance was okay. Like, I didn't have the most fun at work, but, by no means was it a bad job. But, when I was looking at that opportunities, when I'm looking for jobs now again, I'm like, okay, I could go back there, but I'm looking like, okay, does it make me happy? Is it commute? Is the commute something I'm okay with? And do I find the company's values, important? Those are all things again, as we're talking about when you're applying to jobs or careers, that like you really actually, the money looks good all the time, but like you really want to start looking like, okay, am I going to be happy at this job? There's really a lot more to it than money, I realize. Definitely, like, if it's a career, benefits. So don't get a job without benefits, please. Well, like, you could get it, but, like, make sure, like, if you can, at least try to get it, because, you want to make sure you're taking care of your health and all that. And so, again, you really just want to look at the whole package, like, oh, it's, oh, wow, they're paying me $1 million, but they say I'm working 80 hours a week. I don't know about that, So again, those are also things you can ask during the interview process, and get those questions out.
All right, quick, I'll let you go.
Yeah, to add on to what you said, in terms of finding jobs and in terms of determining what's the best job, I would say there are certain jobs that you're gonna have to do that can be a bridge between what you actually want to do and something that you just have to do to make ends meet, or something you have to do to gain the necessary experience in order to actually get to where you want to get to. This is something I wanted to add on to what you said, Justin, in general. But also, one thing that is kind of a general rule of thumb, when recruiters put listings, particularly on LinkedIn, oftentimes they will exaggerate the qualifications and the experience that they're looking for, because they're trying to get the best candidate possible. So if you're an entry-level person looking for example, looking for a position that I would be in, I'm an entry-level research engineer, they would put something like associate research engineer we want like 0 to 3 years or 1 to 3 years of experience in battery engineering, knowing good and well that they're just looking for people who just came out of college who are looking for a job. So don't be scared for job listings that want you to have all these qualifications, know all these different skill sets and things of that nature.
Yeah, no, because honestly, yeah, sometimes 3 to 4 years of experience literally means what you've been doing this whole time if you're in college, which is you've been in college for 4 years, you have 4 years of experience.
One of my like first jobs, like
Yeah.
they said like, yeah, we're looking for sophomores. When I got as a freshman, and I promise you, a high schooler could have done it. So definitely, Kwaku's true that like,
Yeah.
you know, they say those things, but apply to the job. You know, they may call you back.
That too. Apply to the job regardless, because of the exaggerated qualifications that they put on their listing. I would say interview the company. And what I mean by that is look on the website. That's one. If you get it on one of those, like something like Handshake, are y'all familiar with Handshake? LinkedIn? If you get it on something like that, go on LinkedIn, and then you can click on the company, and you can search for people in that company who have a LinkedIn profile and direct message them. And I say this so aggressively, but I didn't approach this person aggressively. I was like, hi, you're in the program that I'm doing. I looked at that person. I looked at the position they worked. It was the one I was applying for. And I just asked them for their time. I also looked for a person, being a black woman, a person who looked like me. Because I didn't want someone who didn't have similar experiences telling me, oh yeah, the company is great. Meanwhile, they're racist. So I looked for a company. I looked for someone who looked like me, all those qualifications, and then I direct messaged them and I asked to see if they had time just to talk about their experience in the company. And the person was nice. I did contact 2 people. The first person I contacted did not get back to me, but the second person did. So sometimes if you contact a person working there, they may not get back to you, but that's okay. The next person did. We had a sit-down conversation. And once she was explaining to me her company and like her time and experience, I was like, okay, this company sounds like a good company for me to work at. What that did, not only did it give me an understanding of the company, but it also gave me points that I could also talk about in my interview for the company. Because naturally she was talking about the company's culture. Naturally she was talking about her experience and what also got her into getting that job. Another thing that did for me was put me in the position to really think, is this place for me, right? And I think that's important. Really understanding that them posting the posting means that they're looking for someone too. They need you as much as you need them. So interviewing the company in that sense, if you can get your foot in the door and ask somebody who works there to take that time, yeah, definitely do that. But then also know that as a rule of thumb, just like the qualifications, people are naturally, unless they really don't care, they're going to naturally try and talk up their company. So you have to have that discerning spirit and really look through what they're saying. Like cut through oh yeah, life is great, but if their eye is twitching whilst they're saying that this company is a good place to work at, obviously this company is gonna stress you out, so don't work for them, and her eye wasn't twitching, thankfully. But I was paying attention to her body language. I was paying attention to some of the words that she was saying when she was describing her work hours and things like that. So to add on to that question, when you're asking them about the company, asking them, like Justin said, do they like working there? Do they have free time? Do they have friends? Not really necessarily do they have friends, but what's the company culture like? And pay attention to if they're saying something that could be a red flag, basically.
Yeah, I would just like to add on, because my freshman year, I was really desperate to get some sort of internship or job. So I did that whole process with a lot of people. And also, if you feel like you established a well enough relationship, it's okay to ask if if you can use their name as like a reference or some sort of person you know in the company when you're applying, because that also helps.
That's a really good point.
And Beverly, I just wanted to touch on another aspect of the question that you particularly mentioned, which is salary. So I like to say, one thing that I've learned having been in the corporate space for around 8 months now is that generally speaking, people from our sociocultural background, we have a different mentality when it comes to negotiating salary. And I'm glad I had my brother as a resource to really help me navigate that. But we often are victims of being lowballed because we don't understand. And I would like to say, just generally speaking, for all of us in this room, it's a consistent battle, but when you're approaching the job search process, you need to change your mentality, really change how you view the process. You are looking for something that suits you. Have that mentality when you're talking to companies, because oftentimes people will value you how you value yourself. So along those lines, when you're trying to negotiate your salary, always go higher than what you think would be high. Because worst comes to worst, they'll meet you somewhere very low, but usually they'll meet you halfway. So one strategy that I used when I was negotiating my salary is I gave them a number that was significantly higher than I expected to pay, and as a result, they met me in the middle, which was still significantly higher than I was expected to be paid. So just really, this goes for every job, whether it be something that is listed as $21 an hour to something that's listed as $50 an hour. Like, don't be afraid to ask for money, because your time is valuable. Like, you are a human being with wisdom and resources. They need you, and especially us being children of God, we have a certain value that other people don't have. So keep that in mind when you're looking for jobs.
Yeah, that was great. That was great. Thank you. This conversation, the way we're moving. Do we have any other questions about applying to jobs before we get to our next topic? Bernadette, yes.
Hi, I'm Bernadette.
Hi, Bernadette.
So I just graduated from UMass Dartmouth in May. I haven't really found like a full-time job yet. I still have my part-time job, but I hate it. I graduated from public health, but my school, they call it Health and Society, but it's not something that I'm interested in. So like I'm just wondering, like, for me to like transitioning out of that career path into I actually want to go into like data analyst. So
Okay.
what can I do to like go into that pathway? I don't know.
Okay. So you're ultimately looking to be more in the data analyst side.
Yeah.
All right. I know it's public health, and I probably should answer. Oh, Loretta. Oh.
Data analyst is like related to public health, and I know you said like you're trying to branch out of it. My advice would be that like channel whatever you studied in school, it has some parts of data analyst in it. So like take a step back and like think about some of the classes. Most public health classes have something to do with data collection and those things, and then see if you might have to like there are courses online. Does Harvard give like free courses certificate for like specific interests, and you already have that background in health, public health, so I would say look for those free resources. And sometimes you can just like go and find a data analyst job or like an internship, just to like brush up on like some of the things that you didn't learn while you were in school. So you don't have to feel like you have to go get a whole master's degree in data analysis when you already have like some knowledge. Because the public health, even though they call it something else, it's about how you communicate it to employers. Like, this is what my school calls it, but this is what I learned while I was there.
I think Loretta covered it completely. I will just emphasize that whole start with those free resources like Google, YouTube videos. Like that's just a great way. Just like get yourself interested, know what you're talking about, and as she mentioned, like eventually you could start. Maybe you know someone in data analyst. Maybe you could find a job, and like just those simple, small ways to start is a slow way to grow into a profession.
Now, I have another specific question before I try and answer. What type of data analyst are you looking into? Like, are you looking into public health or more tech? You don't have to go into specifics if you're not comfortable. But
Specifically, tech. Look, I want to
Okay.
go into the health tech field.
health tech field. Okay, so definitely echoing what Loretta said with courses, because with those courses that you did have some technical experience, you could easily fluff that up, and we're gonna talk about that in the next section, and advertise that in a way that sounds like what you did, which is work and in a class that gave you that tech experience. It may not sound like this big, beautiful, but you have that experience. Another thing I would say is going back to the similar point about professors and utilizing your college resources, because even though sometimes it may seem like they're not there, my one resource that I really used a lot in college too, outside of the ones that didn't help for me, was the Career Development Center. And if UMass Dartmouth has one, maybe reaching out to them and seeing like, all right, you recently graduated, right? So like, hi, I recently graduated. If you do still have access to that resource, like, I recently graduated, I want something different in my path, and they could also give you additional support. And one thing I realized about that is you're carrying their name. Like, you graduated from UMass Dartmouth. Obviously, they want you to look good. One thing my professors used to tell me was sometimes, and this is a little off topic, but sometimes WPI doesn't want people to come back to WPI for graduate school. They want you to go to Harvard. They want you to go to Tufts. They want you to go to all these big schools because they want to be able to say, oh yeah, our students did this. So I'm saying that to say they want to help you. It may seem like this is a dead end, but using those resources, taking those free courses on Google and stuff like that. Right now, tech is booming. Tech, if I were to go back, I would have done a small course on Google and gotten, like, some people are doing these courses and getting 100K starting, and I'm sitting here, but it's okay, God is good, and we move. But in another lifetime, I'm in tech. Did we answer your question? Does anyone have anything else?
Guess just briefly, and this goes for anyone in tech too. If one of us should talk to y'all about like NSBE, National Society of Black Engineers, it's definitely another great resource, especially we're talking about school resources as well as other like technical resources. I know there's like the Associates for Computing Machinery. I'm sure there's a bunch of Chemi ones as well. So there's also like professional groups as well that you can join that again are resources outside of any institution. You know, these are national, the worldwide institution programs as well that are also a bunch of other professionals that, at least could tell you or help you get your foot in the door.
These groups are also in LinkedIn. So if you go in LinkedIn and type in like NSBE or National Society of Black Engineers, you'll see it. And sometimes they even have like webinars or meetings that are virtual, and you can just sit in and listen to what they're talking about. And you never know, it could maybe help your career path.
Yeah, wow. So all those resources, you got your professional resources. I didn't even know. And I actually made the one for our chapter, but I forgot that chapters there are professional like pages on LinkedIn for professional chapters as well. So, Patrick.
Yes. So when it comes to negotiate how much you would like to get paid, have you ever been at an interview where the hiring manager did not mention it and you had to bring it up? Did you understand my question?
You said it a little fast. Say that again.
Oh, yeah. I asked, have you ever been at an interview where the hiring manager forgot or did not bring up the discussion about the salary or the wages? If yes, when and how do you do to bring it up and talk about it?
So I would say in my first experience, I was applying for an internship, so the interview went on and it was more, I'll let you know, you'll hear back, and then after they give you an offer letter. In my second experience, the first interview, it went on, we talked on the phone, things of that nature, and there are certain interviews like that, typically the behavioral and or the preliminary technical interviews in which they often won't talk to you about the salary, but be patient, because I mean, they have to, like, eventually. And if they give you something that you're not happy with, tell them that you're not happy with it. Like, don't be afraid to do that, because I'm glad to be at a company where our coworkers are open about discussing our salaries, but you'd be amazed at the different levels of experience and the different levels of salaries that people are getting regardless, just because that's what they asked for, because that's what they thought they were worth.
And to echo his point again, I would say, yeah, once, maybe there are 3 rounds of the interview process or 2, once those rounds kind of finish and your foot is really in the door and they really like you, boom, how much are you going to pay me? Because now, listen, you have to know your worth, just like everyone has been saying tonight, and they need you. So you're locked in, and that's when you can do some of those tips you were saying with set a bar very high, knowing their middle point is what you actually wanted, and things like that, and of that nature. Vivian? Yeah. Okay. Before we get to you, Loretta, I had so many topics planned for tonight. We're going to talk about imposter syndrome, building your resume, crafting that elevator's pitch, career fairs, networking, thinking outside the box. But with the last 13, thank you. The last 13 minutes of, I'm not really good at simple math, but I can do calculus. Anywho, with the last 13, maybe even 12 minutes of our panel, I want to turn it to the audience to really ask around those topics, but anything pertaining to your journey right now, and like any other experience you want to share for us to answer and people in the audience to answer. Yeah. I also want to caution, please do not be afraid to ask. You all, thankfully, I'm so grateful for everyone who came. You spent 2 hours here. Get your time's worth, because time is money. So get your time's worth. Ask all the questions. I promise you there's so much floating inside me right now that I want to talk about, but get your time's worth and ask what you want to get out of this. So Loretta.
I was just going to add about negotiating money. It's not just money that you negotiate. After the pandemic, days that you can work at home, you can negotiate I think vacation time, all of that. When I first got my job, I emailed one of my professors and I said, hey, this is my first big girl job. I don't know what to ask for. And then she was like, just go online and find how much people get paid for the job that you are applying for, and then ask for more of what you see online, so that when they bring it down, it's leveled. And she said, don't forget to negotiate for days that you work at home. But you have to research the company to see if they offer days at home, and then you be like, I want this amount of days at home. Even if they don't give you the money that you want, you can be like, since you didn't give me the money I want, can I get 3 days at home instead?
Exactly.
So those are all part of negotiation.
Thank you.
Yeah. Sorry, I'll just say, yeah, that experience didn't happen to me, but just always negotiate. I'll just say that. Don't not negotiate. Definitely negotiate.
Bernadette?
I just have a general question about when you have an interview, when interviewers tell you oh, this is the amount of time I'll get back to you, how long does it usually take for them to reach out back to you?
How long does it take for them to reach out back to us?
Yeah, to let you know if you got the job or not.
So, without saying too much, I used to, on the other side of it, I used to not really understand when a company could take really long or be super quick. However, if they're super quick, could be a red flag, could not be discerned. But okay, anywho, I would say, depending on internal things that they can't control, sometimes someone going on vacation that needs to be there to have that final interview or to review your application. Sometimes someone having a baby. Sometimes like personal things that your interviewers could be going through could also delay that process. But I would say, I think a rule of thumb is definitely checking back in at least 2 weeks and saying, hi, you said you'd get back to me. What's going on? But does anyone else have anything else they would want to add?
Yeah, I was gonna say 1 week, but yeah.
Or 1 week, or one.
I mean, at the very least, I would reach out and do the whole thank you for the interview thing shortly after. Perhaps wait that 1 week so you can have, be in their mind consistently. And then, in 2 weeks, definitely check back in and, figure out what's actually going on with their application.
Yeah, and it's a little pensive, but it's also, again, like, this is you. Like, you're trying to get that job. So, like, hopefully, like, at the end of the convo, like, they will tell you, again, like, ideal situation. But then, like, you could always say a great point is just be like, okay, when can I expect to hear back? That's also a great question if you don't have any questions. And then, so if they say 3 or 4 days, like, then you follow up like 3 or 4 days. But again, just in general, not just to that question, but also being proactive, showing the interviewer you're engaged is also another way to, like, if you're messaging them on LinkedIn, and be like, oh, well, you're keeping that constant communication.
Hello, Pastor. It's all Pastor to Pastor.
I have a question. My question is, what if you know that there are other candidates for this particular job? You are broke and you need that company. You just want to work because you have to work and you love this company. You got into the company, you saw that there are other candidates. Is it advisable to negotiate the money in that interview, or what do you do?
I would say, in that sentiment, when you know your what you have going on, what you want, I think it goes back to knowing what you want. If you are broke and you just need a job, don't negotiate that salary, get the job. I mean, I know, Kwaku may not agree with me, maybe Justin, maybe not even Luese, but it's all about what you want. Maybe now's not the time to define your worth and say, oh yeah, all those things they're saying nowadays. Oh yeah, my worth, all that. No, you're broke. Get a job. That's just my point on it. But again, if you have pride and you still want to negotiate, go ahead. But yeah, especially if you love the job already, just get the job. Here comes my counter. Go ahead, Kwaku.
So, I would say when it comes to interviewing candidates, it comes down to 3 core factors: the technical skills, the soft skills, and then the salary. So when it comes to the technical skills, typically speaking, if you're applying for a job that is in that range, you will have that should be a level playing field. So what you can focus on is the salary and the soft skills. I would say if you're a person in that position, try your best for the soft skills, meaning that passion, that energy, because that is what will, at the end of the day, differentiate you from the other candidates. But when it comes to salary, I would say do not, like, if you really need the job, I would always say to ask for more than what you would think that you could get, because at the end of the day, to a certain degree, people will value what you're worth. And if you truly believe that you're worth that much, they will oftentimes be like, if the other candidates ask for 70K and you're asking for 80K, they'd be like, why does this person think they're worth 80K? Because that's the nature of human beings. Because at the end of the day, that 10K difference to that company is minimal, actually. Because they have budgets on the scale of millions and things of that nature. So when it comes to salary, I would say don't lowball yourself, but in that specific situation, stick to the median, but never go to the lowest.
Agree.
I would say my answer depends. Just because, so let's say like you're in the interview and like in my experience, like once I got the offer letter, the company was like, okay, we don't want you to go to a new company. So we are happy to negotiate at this point. And so let's say you're already working in a company, at certain points, you have reviews, so you may not even be able to negotiate. What was it? Yeah, so let's say you need a job though, but like, you're applying and everything, and so that's what I'm saying. If the company wants you, then I still wouldn't lower myself. I'd still negotiate. Especially because if you show your value, then they may still be willing to have you, and if not, then you'll take your talents elsewhere.
I say just always be humble, because you don't want to make it look like you're bigger than yourself. So just always ask for something reasonable to yourself.
Know yourself.
Always negotiate.
Pastor, did we answer your question?
Yes, I was just thinking of another question, but I will be right back.
Yes, Bev. Bev, Patrick.
My question is like for Justin. So wait, what did you major in at WPI?
Computer science.
Okay. So how did you like branch off into like entrepreneurship? Because I see you do like Doughboys and all that. Like, how did you get there, and like, what inspired you, and where are you going with it?
Yeah. So So I'm studying computer science, and just I'm like have a business as well. It's called Doughboys, focused on social justice. But I got involved in that because of the mission. As I said, it's about promoting social justice and feeding people who are hungry. So, those are just things that I've always been passionate about, and that's kind of what brought me to CS as well. Computer science is just a tool. Like, I felt like my major was a tool I could use as a skill to support my personal endeavors. And the ways I was able to do that is help to make my an application, build a community of people that are supportive, things like that. So I feel like in any case, whether you want to be a doctor, an architect, whatever you study in school doesn't define you. Let's say you want to, you could get a job and still learn something that doesn't particularly apply. I'm applying for library jobs, and apparently you need a master's degree, but a lot of computer scientists turn out to be librarians, things like that. So I think, again, just not letting your major say, okay, I have to do this. It's just okay, I'm going to assemble all the skills and tools that are going to be best for my goals, which is to pursue entrepreneurship. Yeah.
So I have a question to talk about Bev, or to expand on Bev's question for you. So, you're working, you went to school, obviously for computer science, but using your computer science major, you're able to use that as a tool to spark your business. But what was that transition like? You have your own job, you're working a job, but you're also starting a path on entrepreneurship. How did you bridge the two, and how did you also so my question is, how did you bridge the two? How did you look to yourself to use your major as a tool, but then also acquire a new skill set to be an entrepreneur? Because that a lot of people now are doing a lot. Like, I'm in grad school and I'm working full time. But working full time and starting a new endeavor is a lot of work. So if you could talk about that.
That's a lot, and I know we don't have a lot of time, so I'll try to be brief. But I think it's a process, right? As I mentioned, it's a lot. So I take it slow. Like literally, the first thing I did, I wrote a business plan or put stuff on paper, and it's still like goes constantly, right? Like I know one day, like for whether you want to be a data analyst one day and you do something now, like I know, okay, this is my end goal. So like today I'm gonna watch one YouTube video on like this skill, or like I'm gonna work on this, or like this goal is like what I'm gonna work towards, so that by the end of the year I accomplish this goal. So knowing that like my throwing those and building the data, my profession and my career isn't gonna be defined all at one moment, but having a plan, being intentional, setting goals, and setting priorities is what I try to do, and what helps.
Thank you, Justin. With that being said, it is 9:01. I want to thank everyone for coming and being a part of this panel. I want to give our wonderful panelists here a round of applause. Thank you for giving your time and the people in the audience. Let's clap for the audience, yeah? For sharing your experiences and connecting. I want to do more stuff like this. I know we try to cover a lot, but I know there's so much more we can do, like resume building boot camps and things of that nature. So if the Lord wills it, I also want to thank Pastor for the opportunity to come and talk today. Thank you, Pastor Gladys. And our media and communications team, Beverly, for putting this all together. So thank you for being a part. Our journey's not done. There'll be more in the Let's Talk series. This was just Let's Talk Career, but we have so much more and other topics, so please be there for those, and have a good night, everyone. God bless you all.